I am back again to talk about some happenings in Canton, Massachusetts, and I'm doing a little mini expose on the Albert brothers. So this is part 3, and today I'm going to talk about Kevin Albert. Now, before I get to it, I first just have to go back with a correction, and thank you everybody that came into my comments. You're welcome to do that anytime I screw something up. But last time I had said that Chris Albert, that his wife Julie was the one that smacked Turtle Boy on the street. And it wasn't Julie, it was actually her sister Jill. So I'm just happy to announce that the family tree has another rotten branch. Yeah, fantastic. It just keeps spreading. But today I want to talk about Kevin. And we found out that as of June 13th, 2024, Chief Rafferty has put him on a paid vacation. And yes, whenever you are suspended with pay, it is that. It's a paid vacation. He's getting all of his pay, his benefits, and my guess is he's probably still accruing time off and sick time and all those other benefits that he has that would continue to accrue while he's out on paid administrative leave while they investigate an incident that took place with Proctor 2 years earlier. Now, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but I got 2 other things I want to talk about first. Now, you guys know me. I'm a day late and a dollar short to everything. So there might be some things here that you already know, but I'm just finding them out for the first time. I find them really fascinating. So I'd always been under the assumption that the reason that the Canton PD weren't allowed to investigate John O'Keefe's death was because there was a relationship between Kevin Albert and Brian Albert. So when your brother finds a dead guy, oh, I'm sorry, he didn't find him because he didn't even fucking come outside. When there is a dead man on your brother's lawn, you as the cop, you don't get to investigate it. And any of your friend cops, buddy cops, you don't get to investigate it. The state police had to come in. Now, granted, that morning, the Canton PD did show up first. So they were there. They showed up first. They collected some evidence. But then when the state police came in, they handed it off. And we all agree that should have happened. And I always thought it was because of the 2 brothers. But it turns out that Kevin Albert also had a relationship with the Furbish family. And I sat there and thought, wait, who's the Furbish family and why should that matter? Because in February of 2014, Kevin Albert, one of his coworkers, came up with the idea and entirely planned, marketed, and facilitated a fundraiser in town for this family. It was actually for these children by the name of Kaylee and Patrick. They were 6 and 3 at the time. And they had lost their parents, both their parents, within 61 days of each other. This story sounds familiar. That is because the Furbishes are actually John O'Keefe's sister and his brother-in-law. So Kevin Albert had a relationship with John's family as well. Not just his own family, but John's family. He had said in a previous article that I saw, he was talking about the fundraiser and saying that this was a wonderful family. They didn't deserve to have this happen. We're trying to look out for the kids. You know, things like this are really sad. I want to contribute to this family. Like, he knew them. He knew them. And he went out of his way to plan this CrossFit event so that he could help them. And you don't do that you don't plan that for absolute strangers. He had to have known them on some level. So that was another reason that the Canton PD should never have been anywhere near the investigation of John O'Keefe's death. And shame on Kevin Albert for continuing to insert himself as time went on in this investigation. Now, the second thing I've always wondered is we've all heard the conversation, and Chief Rafferty did confirm it, that before his death, John O'Keefe did come to Kevin Albert and report that there were some teenagers that he felt were dealing drugs or using drugs in his neighborhood. Now, there's a lot of people out there that think that John reported Colin. Chief Rafferty had said, nope, Colin's name was not mentioned. And I always thought it was a little weird. Like, why would John go to Kevin to rat out Colin? That feels strange to me. And then I wondered, why would John go to Kevin anyway? And now that I know that Kevin was friends with his sister, that makes a little bit more sense. But there's another reason. Back in January of 2014, the Canton PD formed what's called a Family Services Unit. And it's a special collective group of officers whose mission it was, they would take all cases pertaining to juveniles. So if it was domestic violence, if it was drugs, alcohol related, if it was sex crimes, if it was internet crimes, bullying, the big purpose of it was outreach to have resource officers in all of the schools. And Kevin Albert was part of this group, and he acted as a liaison under an Adopt a School program. So he was able to go into the schools as often, it was said they could go as often as they felt they needed to try to keep kids on the up and up, right? To make sure they didn't get involved in drugs, they weren't getting bullied, they weren't, having problems at home, whatever. So he was part of this group. And a month later is when he was doing the fundraiser for John O'Keefe's sister's kids. Now that he's aware of all of the things that are happening with domestic and involving kids in the community, he's now getting much more involved. I really honestly believe, you guys are going to hate me for saying this, but I really honestly believe this. I think at one time Kevin Albert was trying to be a good guy. I really do feel that. Like, I feel like one time he was committed to this community and he wanted to do right by the community. But I think years and years of being around other shitty people and having in my opinion, a fully corrupt police chief in Berkowitz, and probably seeing his brothers and other cops do a bunch of shady shit by putting away the people they didn't like and taking bribes and doing all kinds of stuff. He was probably, I mean, at some point, I think he broke bad. That is my opinion of Kevin Albert. I think at some point something shifted in him and he started to go rotten like the rest of the Albert family. But knowing that he was part of that very specific family services unit was probably the reason that John O'Keefe went to him specifically to report on some high school age kids that were dealing drugs or doing drugs in his neighborhood. There have also been you can find a couple of articles online where Kevin Albert participated in different drug arrests of youths or other things that he was doing to get drugs and guns off the street, breaking up kind of these drug houses. So there were other arrests that he was a part of. So he was very much motivated to kind of clean up the streets in Canton, at least there for a while. A couple of things we got to hear on the stand as they were interviewing Proctor and a couple of others, as we did hear about the incident that happened on July 19th of 2022 when Michael Proctor and Kevin Albert go to the Cape to do some work on a cold case. On the way back, they stopped for dinner and a couple of drinks, according to Proctor. Well, it turns out they got fucking hammered while driving his police cruiser. The next morning, Proctor has to text Kevin Albert. This is July 20th of 2022. Proctor texts him and says, "I found your badge in my cruiser. And, what do you want me to do? Leave it in my locker, put it in your mailbox, whatever." And Albert says, "Go ahead and put it in my mailbox." And he's like, "By the way, did I take my gun?" with a little wince emoji, because he's fucking missing his gun too. You got to be really, really drunk to lose both your gun and your badge. And you got to be stupid as fuck to be driving around in a police cruiser while you're drunk. The night of John O'Keefe's death, Kevin Albert wasn't there. He had been in the funeral in New York with his brother, Brian Higgins, and Eddie Hernandez. But as they came back from New York, he was dropped off. He did not go to the waterfall and he did not go to the party. He wasn't one of the first responders to his brother's house and the reports of a dead man on the lawn. But as they were handing off the case, it was Kevin who texted Proctor on his personal cell phone and said, "Hey, listen, we've got these three guys, Gallagher, Seraph, and Mulaney, who were all part of the early investigation. They're willing to interview you. You can come on in here and talk to them anytime you want to." I think that might still be an innocent handoff. We got stuff. We've made reports. We'll give this information over to you. But I think it continues. Kevin was allowed to continue participating in interviews. They allowed him to continue following up with certain things throughout the course of the lack of investigation that Proctor was doing. Kevin still kept infusing himself, largely probably reporting back to his brother. There was a point where Higgins was asked if he had maybe gone off the reservation, because at some point Brian Albert reaches out to his brother Kevin, and Kevin gets in touch with Higgins, almost like they're trying to bring Higgins back in. They're worried that Higgins maybe is turning on them. So Kevin was re-involving himself in everything, including when Chief Berkowitz magically found that big piece of taillight. He called the state police, but the Canton PD showed up anyway. So Kevin continued to reach back around, talking to various people. And although he's like behind the scenes, I think he's still very much working on behalf of his brother. I don't think he's the bad guy. I think he's afraid of his brother, and his brother's making him do these things, allegedly. Okay, more to come. Brian's up next.